Hi, Simanye. I'm glad to be here. I am Charlotte Kemp. I am a Futurist keynote speaker, and I'm an executive coach. I work with organizations to help them to think about the future differently. And some of the things that we need to think about differently into the future is how we construct our careers. So we're going to be discussing a little bit about portfolio careers today.
Okay, thank you very much for that brief overview. And I think people now fully understand what this podcast is going to be about. And so just to quickly get onto the podcast, first of all, I just want to say thank you for that introduction again. And yeah, Charlotte, can you tell us a bit about your background? And also, you did mention something, which is you are actually known, right, as the Futures Alchemist. So how did it get to that point?
Great. So in my career, I started working in the financial sector, and then I moved into the training departments. I set up a training department once for a company in the financial sector. And then I realized I really loved working with people in that space. And so my career as a trainer, facilitator, and then professional speaker evolved. And as professional speakers, we speak about different topics, whatever is our expertise. And I spoke about some topics for a while, but I wasn't happy and I wanted to develop for myself something that was unique and special to me and meaningful to my clients. And so I went back to school and I learned how to become a futurist. So a futurist is someone who uses tools and models to find new ways to look at the future, to find ways to be innovative, to respond to trends and changes and disruptions, and to actually make some significant plans and actions today so that we get to the future that we want to in the future. And the Futures Alchemist label is just my personal branding. So I'm the only Futures Alchemist. There are many futurists out there. But as an alchemist, I think that the whole metaphor of alchemy is so amazing. We take base metals and we transmute them into something better, something higher. And that could mean that we as professionals, that we develop, that we grow, that we respond. So there's all the changes, chemical changes happening inside of us so that we can be better in the future. And then when I'm working with the actual futures work, is to say to an organization, you've got such great elements, such great talent and insights and experience. And then I come in as a catalyst and we do some magic and some science, and then they become a more resilient, a more innovative, a more responsive organization. So that's why I call myself the Futures Alchemist. And I really enjoyed that title.
Okay. And I was actually just looking at your background and I love what I'm actually seeing there.
It's
Yeah.
my own personal wormhole. Yes, because I am a science fiction nut as well.
Is it? I really love
Mm.
that.
Oh,
While I
thank you.
was listening to you, I was also looking at it. It's kind of,
Mm.
so and
Yeah.
and yeah, and thank you very much for what you've just mentioned right now. And I think
Mm.
you've truly gotten into it a bit. And for people that didn't understand it, I believe now they do, so thank you very much for that. And then also at the very same time, you happen to mention something, which is that I won't exactly say it the way that you said it, but you mentioned something that you try to teach people, right, a bit about the in terms of the career side, you know.
Mm.
So basically now, what is a portfolio career, right? Because that is something that we're going to be discussing in this podcast.
Mm.
So what is a portfolio career? And also at the very same time, how does it actually differ from the traditional career paths?
Okay. All right. So when I started working a significant period of time ago in my past, I worked for a couple of companies in the financial space, and I joined this one company, and it was really exciting. I was at the local branch, but it's a big international company, and I started learning. They had all these little internal learning programs, and then they gave me this kind of document that said, this is my career path, my ladder. And if I do these courses, and if I qualify at that level, etc., I can go up this career path. And then there are things that I can do within the company. And that that was great for back then. Decades ago, people joined a company and they expected to work there forever. My father's advice to me was, get a BCom LLB, so it's a commerce degree with a law extra, and get a job in an insurance company and contribute to your retirement annuity from your first paycheck, and then stay there, and you'll be successful and you'll be happy. And I didn't. Apart from doing the retirement annuity, I didn't follow my father's advice. But I have seen people who stay in the corporate space and they move around and they get good jobs and they're happy. But the majority of people cannot do that or expect for that to work for them forever. First of all, there is no guarantee that the company that you work for will not fail in the future. There is no company that is too big to fail. And when there's disruptions, you got to plan out your whole career path in this corporate business, and then they disappear and you lose your job. Or they make changes, or they get bought out, or something happens, and then you are retrenched. You're made redundant out of that job because they're going in a different direction. There is no guarantee. And people who look at any job as a guarantee immediately make themselves vulnerable. So even if a person has a full-time job, my advice is always to think of it as, think of yourself as a business entity. So I'm talking to like full-time employees now, not all of the rest of us who are consultants and creatives and coaches, and we are our own business entity. But think of yourself as a business entity, and every month you agree to sell your services to this client. And every month this client agrees to work with you for another month. And when you get to the end of the month and they pay your invoice, they pay your salary, you say, do I want to work with this client for another month? Is this client still wanting to work with me for another month? And then you agree to it, even if it's just in your own mind. But every month you have to have that awareness, because the minute you start relaxing and saying, we're fine for the next couple of years and I'll get, bonuses and things, you're not paying attention to what is happening to the company, where you could lose your job, or how the company is evolving and you have to have new skills and insights to change. So that means if you are developing yourself and you get to the end of one of those months where you get your invoice paid, and then you say to your client, I have now learned these new skills. I am now more valuable to you. I would like an opportunity to work in a different position, or to renegotiate the monthly invoice that I charge you. And of course, you're going to change the language. You're not going to be that upfront to whoever your boss is. But you have to have that mindset the whole time, that you are developing yourself. You are the product, and you have this ongoing relationship. So if we think about that, then everybody's jobs become like a portfolio. You're agreeing to work with this client for a period of time, and you may work for another client in the future. But when we really look at portfolio careers, it means that saying, kind of structuring things to say, I'm going to work with this company. They've just offered me a job. I'm going to work with them, and I'm going to say for 2 years. And after 2 years, I would have developed enough value for them. They will be happy, but then I'm going to resign from this job. And I'm either going to go and learn something new, or I'm going to go on a holiday, or I'm going to spend time with a family, or I'm going to redevelop my house, whatever it is. But you take time off and you do something different. And after that period of time, you come back. And now you've got new insights and skills and values. And you can go back to that first client if they want you back. If they are open to this kind of thing, they're going to want you back. They're not just going to be stuffy about you having to stay in the company the whole time. Or you can move on to another company. You can work online, virtually. You can go to different parts of the world. You can take a trip with your children and live somewhere else for a year for their benefit and experience while you work remotely somewhere else. So it really is unshackling our brain and our expectations about how a job looks, how a career looks. And all the advice that our career guidance counselors gave us about your CV looks very questionable when there's gaps on it, or when you change your employer too often. Just change your whole way you do your CV. Talk about the skills and the competencies you have, and you got them from these projects, not that you've just been employed this whole time by one company. So it really is a mind shift change for all of us to think about our careers in a different way.
Okay. And just to add to what you were saying, I think do you definitely you know him. You know Tim, right?
Yes.
Yes. Also, Tim was actually pretty much saying the very same thing when he was, because he was here on the podcast, and
Yeah.
he was, and he was actually sharing a bit about his story, on how he was actually working for a company, making a lot of, a lot of money, but at the very same time, as much as he was working there, making a lot of money, but then at the very same time, he got burnt out.
Mm.
He started to have issues. He started to have problems within his family.
Yeah.
He started not uh being, how can I actually put it? He started to not. He started. How can I actually put this? I actually have it in my mind. He
Well,
started.
let me try, because I
Yeah,
I really resonate with what Tim's doing, and what he was talking about,
yeah,
Tim Wagner, right? So he
yeah,
says, when we put our companies first, our employer first, or our clients first,
yeah,
because we are responsible, creative people, and we know that the value of the work that we're doing. But if we put that client first or that company first, then we sacrifice ourselves for the company. And that's why we get burnt out. And then it
yeah,
doesn't matter how much money you earn, because you are not well, your relationship suffers, your health suffers. You're just angry and tense the whole time. You dread going back to work. You dread the next meeting that you have to have. And it's a very unpleasant way to live. When you focus on yourself first, whether you're working for yourself or working for a client or employed, but when you put yourself first and you make sure that you are healthy, that you've got like good mental health, you've got space in your life to breathe and to create and to explore things, then you are more valuable to the employer. But if you put the employer first, then you burn yourself out. And I tell you now, when it comes down to it, we sacrifice more for those employers than the employer will ever sacrifice for
for
us.
you.
We
Yeah,
are we are units to them. We are a cost to them. And if they can cut that cost, they will. There are a couple of companies that you can find that are really good with their people, but most aren't. And so you want to be responsible enough to give enough value, but not to sacrifice yourself. And I think that's why the work that Tim does now, that he's really focusing on literally like breath, like you have time and space to breathe. That is what we should be doing. We're creative human beings. We're not cogs in a machine, and we need to kind of give ourselves the space to explore that.
yeah. And I believe you actually said what I actually had in my mind, but you said it way more better. So thank you, thank you very much for that. Because I think it also aligns a bit with what you're saying, because he was also in the corporate space, and
Mm,
and immediately when he started going out there, of course there were some challenges, but then now he's
mm,
at a point where he he enjoys his life,
mm.
he's no longer being burnt out. So I think I wanted to actually add that to what you were saying,
Yeah.
because I think it aligns a bit, so I wanted to add that to what you were saying. And then also at the very same time, why do you think it's important for people to consider a portfolio career, right?
Mm,
Regardless
yeah.
of their current job situation.
Yeah. You know, I think if we have that mindset, of a portfolio career, regardless of how we actually work, then at a certain point, you can look back on your body of work. And I love that expression. It's if you look at people who are artists, like painting artists, visual artists, photographers, models, when they're looking for a new engagement, they come with their portfolio. They bring a document. Okay, they can do it online, but they can bring a document, and you can page through and say, oh, I like this kind of style, or I like that, that setting. And I don't think that we all appreciate our work as much as that. So we should have a document. We should be able to pull something out and say, look at these talks that I've done. Look at these books that I've written. Look at these clients or projects that I've worked on. And if we can demonstrate that, then we start to value ourselves, what we've created in a job, rather than just having that performance review. And yes, you're compliant with the HR department said you need to do, so you can stay on for another year, unless something goes wrong. So, if we look at what we're creating out of our lives, the value that we're bringing into the world, regardless of where we're employed, we start to appreciate ourselves a lot more. So I think that's why that mind shift change is so important to a portfolio career.
Okay. And I think it's really important that you actually added that into it. I really think it's really important. And then also at the very same time, I think there's still the finances part, and that part, on my side, I think as much as, let me just say, it plays a huge role into it.
It does, yeah.
So how should someone actually plan their finances if they want to actually pursue a portfolio career?
Yeah, I am not going to downplay that at all, because finances are a very significant thing that we need to pay attention to, and it's not easy. And if you have responsibilities, like if you've got children or if you've got parents that you're taking care of, it's very risky to just go and leave your job and go and find, and do something out on your own. I met a wonderful woman once who had she had a new job as a lawyer. She just qualified, and she wanted to be a professional speaker, and she wanted to leave the law firm and strike out as a speaker. And I'm going, that is so dangerous. Please don't do it. So it is possible to design your portfolio career on the side of your job. All right. And different companies have got different rules, and most of them, they're fine if you just, if you let them know, if you inform them, this is my side hustle, this is the thing that I'm doing on the side. To not do anything on the side while you're employed is really risky. So you should either be developing a business of some kind, or you should be learning something on the side that is not directly related to your business, so that you maintain, the value that you're going to bring to anybody in the future. So when it comes to finances, when we just work every month for that paycheck, it's comforting to know that the paycheck is coming. But if anything goes wrong, you're still going to be in trouble. If you get retrenched and you don't have something else to work on, you're still going to be in trouble, even though you were employed. If you are on your own, you need to somehow, again, detach from your thinking, the kind of exchanging time for money. So if you say, look, I've just done 3 hours of work, I need 3 hours worth of money to validate that. That doesn't help when you're on your own, when you're developing your own business, because it's never like that. For example, a professional speaker can be paid a significant amount of money for standing on stage for 1 hour at a big conference. And a lot of people will say, it's just 1 hour of work. How can you possibly think it's worth that much? But what you're giving to that client in that 1 hour is all of your experience with that topic, all of your research, all of your reading, all of your studies and qualifications. That means that you understand the topic, all of your personal coaching, where you have somebody coaching you to be better at what you do, all of your experience as a professional speaker, all of the times that you've gone to Toastmasters or to a speaking coach, or you've rehearsed, or you've done showcase speaking and you haven't been paid, all those years, all those hours and hours and hours of free stuff, means that the value that you bring in that 1 hour is superb and better than, the HR director who can come and say a few things and make a joke. What you're bringing needs to be really valuable. And it's the value that you're selling for that hour. It's not 1 hour of time. So it's very different. And so, sometimes I sit here at my desk and I'm working and I'm setting up my reputation and I'm building my network and I'm studying, and it gets to the end of the day, and I haven't earned anything, but maybe tomorrow I get a speaking engagement that covers my work for the last 3 weeks, so it is a very different thing. So detach your mind from time is money and look more at the value that you're bringing, and know that value needs to pay off. You do need to find a way to do it. If you're going to be very practical, you do something on the side. You have a full-time job or something that you can do that you'll get income while you develop this, and then plan your finances really well. We should not be living to the level of our income, whatever it is. So always kind of peg your income lower and use more. Give yourself that space, that margin, so you live at a lower level. You don't have this fancy elaborate lifestyle, but then you're not getting into debt, you're not creating extra expenses, and you know that you've got that space so that if you need to take time off, if you need to go and study, if you're really frustrated with this client or this boss and you're going to resign, that you've got something to fall back on. So it means looking at a bigger perspective of your finances and not just what happens at the end of this month when I get my salary.
Okay. And on that specific side, I think it is also something that is very important, because there's some people that actually tend to just go straight into something without actually thinking up, and and by some people, I simply mean myself, you know,
I've done it as well. Yes, I've
yeah,
jumped and then going, oh darn,
you know,
too soon.
eh, and now you then have to look back and be like, this is something that I shouldn't have done. So on my side, it's something that I've done, and literally I had to sit for actually 3 years without anything coming in because of that decision that I actually took, and of which it ended up paying up, but at the very same time, there's 3 years of, so there's always that, and I'm glad that I actually have you to actually give them, the audience lessons and pointers here and there, because I think it's something that is really important, and it's something that I wouldn't want anyone to do because I know it, so thank you very much for actually sharing that. And you did actually mention something, and I'll also add to that. There is there's a partner that I actually have, and there's another company that I recently got into, and just to make a testament to what you're saying. Before we actually got into this, he's a software engineer, right? He was working for, actually he's working for a company. It's actually one of the biggest companies in South Africa that does that, and now immediately when we got into this, he was actually doing it on the side. He spoke to his bosses and told them that this is what I'm actually doing, and they were really supportive about it. There wasn't that thing of, no, if you're doing that, then we'll have to, so I think at the very same time, it is important to be a bit honest about it, not having to, because sometimes you might just go out of your way and do something else, but perhaps the company might suffer when you're focusing on that thing, so I think it's something that is really important to actually come out and actually say, this is what I'm actually doing, and what I'm doing won't affect my work with you guys, but I just only need, I will just only take an hour from my time, just try to work it out with them, so that if perhaps they would need to add another person to work with you, then that's something that can be done. So I wanted to actually add that into it, because I think it's something that is really important,
Yeah.
And you're gonna say?
No, I'm gonna say, if you're adding value to the company, then they are more open and flexible to making different arrangements.
Exactly, because you also did mention that when you look at things, all right, and probably it doesn't enter into this, but you shouldn't look at it in terms of the money that you're going to be spending or the money that will be going into it, but you should start looking at the value that will be provided. So as long as you'll be providing the value to the company, there's no reason why they should actually start complaining about anything, and at the very same time, while we're still in the finances part, what are some common financial challenges people face when they are starting this, meaning a portfolio company, portfolio career, and also at the very same time, how can they actually overcome them?
Obviously, when you're employed by a company, they very often have a whole lot of benefits like medical aids and pension funds and things. So when people resign and try and set up on their own, they don't always address those requirements, and they're really important. It depends on, where you are in the world, but there are different countries have got different ways of taking care of people in their old age, or or when they're ill. And if you're not fortunate enough to be in a place that takes care of that and their expenses, then you need to make sure that you can cover them, because one bout of ill health, and you could really be in a very bad place. So getting good financial advice from a financial advisor is really worthwhile, and making sure that you're paying for those insurances and retirement things, because you need that. You need to be practical. So those would be the things I'd say you should really pay attention to.
Okay. Okay. And I think it does truly make sense. Because there are things that actually need to be covered when you decide to
Yeah.
actually, get into it. So and then at the very same time, how can individuals find interest, right, and meaningful projects to actually to actually work on?
Mm. It could take a while for a person to work out what their exact talents and skills and insights are. And not everybody thinks of themselves as creative, but I think what we're missing very often is realizing that something that comes sort of naturally to us, a kind of a natural skill or talent we have that we work on because we play in that space. We sometimes don't realize how valuable that is to somebody else. So for me, I have no problem standing in front of any audience, online or in person, and speaking. For me, this is natural. And I say it's natural, although, it's been a long journey to get to a place where this is something where I feel comfortable. But for somebody else, they would be terrified of having to speak to an audience, but they would have an insight, like maybe to numbers or financial things or accounting things that they're difficult for me. So we need to realize what is the natural talent that we have, the interest that we have, the experience that we have, and what is it out of that we can actually offer to a client, as work that we could do. So we want to stay open, we want to be curious, we want to network, we want to hear what people are struggling with. And sometimes you want to experiment and do a few things. There's a lot of projects that I've experimented on. I've put it out there and said, what do people think? And there's been nothing. And other times I put something out, people go, oh, that is so exciting. We want more of that. So yeah, just be open to a little bit of experimentation until you work out what is that talent that you have that people are looking for.
Oh, okay. So basically, people should be willing to try out a lot of things, as long as they will eventually get to find that specific thing that they're interested in, or that
Yeah.
specific thing that, yeah. So okay, no problem, no problem. And then also at the very same time, are there any strategies or resources you can recommend uh for discovering these new opportunities?
Um, I think the personal reflection is really important. So we need to sit down and really think about what it is we want out of life. I know somebody who is very creative, got such an interesting brain, just sees the world in a very different place, but he wanted a safe life, and he designed a very safe life for himself. And now he's retired and he's got good income and the house is paid for and everything. So everybody else looking at him goes, yeah, he succeeded. But there's so much creativity that he never tapped into, that he's just left abandoned, and few people know about it. And I feel that's a little bit sad, that he hasn't expressed himself through his life as much as he might have wanted to. So yeah, I think some personal reflection. We could be journaling, we could be, and I know I keep saying create things and people think, but I can't draw. I can't paint. I'm not that kind of a creative person, but anything that we do, we're creating. We create the lifestyle for ourselves, and we create our home. We create so much. So really just kind of explore that. The strategies are, finding the things that bring us joy, because when we tap into that, then we're creating something of value for somebody else that brings us value as well. And then we don't get burnt out. We get burnt out when we're trying to pull something out of ourselves that is not there, that it is not bringing us, joy. I know I sound like Marie Kondo now, but But yeah, so what is it? And yeah, it might be experimentation. It might be getting some coaching from somebody who's experienced. It might be having conversations with friends and colleagues who know us well, and then trying to kind of uncover that for ourselves, whatever that is. And go online and research. There's lots of free courses that we can take,
Sure.
that we can learn something new that could kind of round off something for us in our brains, so that we can work out how to take this idea and turn it into a business. There's lots of free stuff available online. We don't need to feel like there's a scarcity of really good advice out there.
True. That is very true. Especially nowadays, it's rare to actually to not find something that you are looking for online, because everyone is always
Yeah.
creating content, which is a good thing,
Yeah.
which is a good thing. And so basically, what skills and competencies are actually essential for succeeding in a portfolio career?
I would say extreme honesty with yourself. I've seen so many people when we're marketing ourselves, when we're pitching ourselves to a client, there's a certain kind of PR thing, your public relations thing we're doing. We got
Sure.
to say, this is great for you. This will solve your problems and help your team, and you'll make more money or have more time or have less, anxiety. And I'm the right person to bring it to you because of my experience and my, and we give them the good marketing pitch, and we need to make sure we can deliver on that pitch. But we must never believe our own PR. We must never sit back and go, I'm so clever, I can do all this stuff, look at me, without ever saying, but I got that wrong, but I failed to understand that, or I didn't really deliver what the client wanted, or, I got the energy wrong, or I missed the tone, or whatever it is, whether it's coaching or speaking or writing or anything else that we're doing, we need to have a really, really honest self-assessment. And if we're working with other people, I wrote a book once about overcoming, failure in business. And one of the chapters is find someone who will be honest with you. Because we could go to family and friends, and we go to our moms and say, look what I've done. And mom goes, that's lovely. It's wonderful. You're doing such a good job. And all these people can just reinforce all the good stuff. You need that one person to come to you and say, you're getting it wrong. For me, I'm starting to stutter here because for me, I have a person who did that to me recently and said, like, your stuff is lovely. Your stuff is great. You're really creative, interesting things, but people don't know what to do with you. They don't know how to work with you. They don't know what is the thing you're doing because you do so many things.
Okay.
And so I just sit down and go, now I have to be really, really intentional about how I communicate what it is that I can do. And I know I can do 100 things, but if I'm trying to sell 100 things, I'm not going to sell anything. But if I try to sell this one thing and people, so that's great. And then they get to me and they go, can you also do that? Can you help us with the next thing? And then I can kind of unpack the rest of my portfolio, but I can't throw all of them at a person at the same time. So we really have to be honest with ourselves. And if we can find somebody else to reflect back to us honestly, that is the most important thing to getting it right. The most important competency you can have is that honesty.
Okay. So basically, you need a person that will tell you when something is wrong. Someone that won't sugarcoat things, but will say them as they are.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And that is actually true. That is actually true.
Mm.
And you know, and also at the very same time, how can someone continuously develop, right, new skills
Mm.
and also stay relevant in their specific field?
Mm. Like we said already, online there are so many courses, so much content that you can explore. I never want to suggest that somebody has to go back to university and get a whole new degree, but we can keep up to date with things that are online.
Yeah.
We can also, I think, as a futurist, one of the tools we use is something called horizon scanning, where we look out, we see what is coming down the horizon and how we need to respond. So I think if we're serious about our careers, we need to have some kind of like an exercise that we do on a regular basis to say, what is happening in my world, in the industry or profession that I'm in? what changes are happening, not just locally wherever you are, but anywhere in the world. What is happening in the lives of the clients that we serve. So if you're working for a company and they're selling products to another sector, what is happening in their world? And if you're paying attention to that, then you can keep preparing yourself for the future. And it might look like sitting down once a quarter. As I'm saying this, I realize I haven't done it for a long time, but I used to take myself out for a meeting once a month and sit down in like a wimpy restaurant or something, get coffee, sit in the corner, and then have a meeting with myself and say, these are the things that I'm aiming for. These are the skills that I need to develop. This is the network I need to develop. What is happening? And make sure that I had a plan of action to keep relevant the whole time to the changes that were happening. And that's the kind of thing we should do very intentionally. Sit down with yourself, or if you've got a mastermind or a team that can work with you, but sit down and work out what is happening. Where can I find out what is happening? Do I need to subscribe to some newsletters or journals? Do I need to read some stuff? Do I need to go to a conference to see what is happening so that I can know what I need to develop? And that intentional plan will keep us, ahead of things so that we're not caught unawares by big changes that happen.
Okay. And now just a question for me about what you were saying. So now let's say you have your alone time, right? Let's just say you go to a cafe or something like that. Since you were saying you need to have you need to have a meeting with yourself, do you perhaps need to have some things with you, or is it just you and your mind, or do you need to journal things at all?
Yeah. I highly recommend that you keep a record of this. You need to be aware of what your plans are. So for example, if you got like, you create a bit of a strategic plan and say, this is where I want to be, or financially, or my reputation, or my opportunities. If you got that big strategic plan, and then you can start working out the things that you need to fill in. So if you got a big, like, I want to be on a board of directors. That's a really big plan. And if you do that, it's really hard to go next month, well, I'm not on the board yet. But what you could say is, I want to be invited to be on a board. And this is what I would need to have. I would need to have these skills or these experiences or courses or whatever it is. And then you can start working on them. But you need a record of that. And if you don't keep that record, then then you're just going to be wandering around. And different people have different kinds of ways of doing it. I've got now a whole setup on my computer, and every single morning when I sit down to work, I look at this dashboard of things that I'm trying to achieve, and what are the next steps in that process so that I can get there. And that keeps me honest to myself so that I know that I'm going in the right direction.
Okay. The reason I was actually asking you, I think it's something that I also need to try out. That's why I was asking you about it. And then also at the very and also at the very same time, I think throughout what we've been having a discussion about, I have also on my side, I happen to see that you you are basically a personal brand on your own, right? You need to build a personal brand around you for you to be able to do this, right? Yeah. And so now basically, how can you, or let me just say, what are some tips, right? For building a personal brand that reflects a diverse range of skills and also experience?
If you sit down and think about any other brand that is out there, and you look at what you're seeing, when we start talking about brand, we immediately start thinking about color schemes and logos and things. And I think that's a very surface level understanding. I think to really understand your brand as an individual, there's two things that I would recommend you start with. One is a really, really good understanding of what your values are. And I for decades, I used to just like dismiss this as, like motivational talk. And especially when you go to companies and they got their values on the front desk, and you go to a motivational conference and people are going, joy, love, peace, joy, love, peace. And you're just repeating things. It's not real. What are your real values? So when I sat down and tried to work out my values a few years ago, I always kind of go overboard. So I went online and I found every single report and thing about values. And I made this huge document full of all the values. And then I sorted them out and I started kind of exploring them and categorizing them and comparing them. And eventually I extracted what my values are, and they're not normal values. My values are alchemy, transcendence, craftsmanship. That they're very different things from what people might normally look at as values. But I suddenly realized that agency is one of them. Agency means not telling people how to do things, but giving them the space to explore it themselves. So when I looked at how I raised my children, when I looked at how I taught my delegates, it's not to tell them this is how you have to do it. It's to say, how can you do it? What is the thing that you want to do? You know, what capacity do you need? So once I discovered what my values were, I realized this is how I want to live my life, the kind of clients I want to work with, the kind of work that I want to do. So the values really lined them up. And then another very interesting exercise I'd recommend is go online and look for brand archetypes. And there's a bunch of different sites out there. One is by a woman called Kate Putnam. So it's brand archetypes, and there'll be quizzes. And then think of yourself as a brand and start answering those quizzes, and you will discover some incredible things about yourself. So when my brand comes out, it's kind of creator, explorer, magician. And then I'm going, oh, now I know how to express myself, because I'm not the girl next door, and I'm not the Lord, I'm not the, you know, there's different brands. So now I've got a bit of a framework to explore to find out how I want to express myself. So values, brand archetypes, the best two places to start to work out your personal brand.
Okay. And thank you very much for sharing that. Also, at the very same time, how should someone actually...
I've just lost your sound.
Oh, sorry, I clicked on
That's
this
it.
by mistake. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Carry on.
Yeah, I was actually asking, how should someone actually go about designing, right, their own portfolio of work?
Mm. Mm. Okay, it's really going to depend on what that person is doing. But I think if a person was to sit down and kind of gather together the things that they've done and the evidence of it. So do they have testimonials on LinkedIn, which is really important, or from anywhere else? So I've got a folder of letters and things that have been sent to me that I've kept. But now obviously a lot more of it is electronic, so it's on LinkedIn. So actually go onto your LinkedIn profile and extract those testimonials and put into a document, and that is part of your portfolio. It's people saying, I've worked with this person and they did this for me, and they're testifying to that. So that is one thing. Have you ever done anything where you've been in the media? So have you ever done anything where you're in a newspaper or magazine article that you've submitted, or even a company magazine that you contributed to, any of those things? And if you don't, what do you need to do to get into a magazine? When I started my speaking career, there was one gorgeous 9-month period of time where I had an article, and I was only paid for one out of all of these articles, but I had an article in a magazine that was on a magazine rack in our local news agency every month for 9 months, because I intentionally went and looked for those opportunities. And we can do that. Wherever we are in our careers, we can contribute to those kinds of things. And then, how are you demonstrating that? There's two things that I look at in terms of demonstrating our value. One is speaking and one is writing. And obviously it's coming from my space, but other people can do this as well, even if you're not professional speakers. So do you have a message where you could speak at a company conference and talk about something that you've developed or you understand? Or do you have that as a book or an article or an ebook or anything? Can you write it out and print it out? And once you've got evidence of those two things, you're starting to build on that portfolio. Anything like that, you're starting to kind of demonstrate those various things. And there's a lot that can go into your portfolio beyond the speaking and the writing. It could be projects you've worked on, when you kind of like worked with bridging two companies, you worked on collaboration with another company, whatever that kind of project is. Try and get that summarized into a document, even if at the moment that portfolio is just for you. not for anybody else, but you can still kind of categorize that and go back and view it.
Thank you very much for actually sharing that. I think it's something that a lot of people, even actually entrepreneurs, need to look at that. It's not exactly people that, a lot of us need to actually look at it that way. So thank you very much for actually sharing that. And now basically, what advice do you actually have for young people entering the job market who are actually considering a portfolio career?
I think for younger people entering the market, they need to stay a little bit flexible and open to how things are happening already. People with lots of experience from previous generations have set up really successful businesses, and younger people can learn from that. They don't need to comply with that, but they should learn and see how things have been done in the past, and then work out how to still be able to create those same good results, but using all of the insights and tools that we have these days. So younger people are so much, find it so much easier to adapt to or to adopt new thinking and new technologies. But we don't want to just throw out everything from the past. We need to find a way to kind of bridge that. So that could be of value to them going into a marketplace that is, full of older people. But for them as well, just to realize that previous generations literally experience the world in a different way from younger generations. So just because they've got values and insights and experiences that are different doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just different. The generations are different in terms of how they've been brought up, what the world was like when they came into it. And so let's try and learn and support and grow and work together. But the younger people are going to know that they're never, they should not, like we said right in the beginning, they should not just believe that they're going to stay with this company, forever, that they're going to be, moving on to other things. And when they are judged by other people for doing that, because of the generation that they came from, because of the values that they have. So to be flexible and open to hear people, that does not mean that we have to agree or we have to comply with, but we have to just hear people out so that we can learn what is the best way for those young people to express their careers. And just to be open, that there's a lot of bad stuff in the world right now. I'm not being foolish about this, but there are also more opportunities than any other generations ever experienced for people with resources to be able to create a life that is just absolutely amazing. And I think they should explore that. And it doesn't have to look like, their fathers or grandfathers' careers.
That is absolutely true. Even on my side, when I went into the social media side of things, there was that question of, will this make you money? Because back then it never, it wasn't something that actually existed.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important what you actually have just mentioned, and also at the very same time, can you please share, because I think if there's anyone that that can actually give us a lot of value on this specific topic, it is you, right? So could you please share a bit on your own experience with managing a portfolio career?
Okay. I will confess it's been difficult. Financially, there have been some serious challenges. I also bought a franchise many years ago that was supposed to be an investment. It went wrong, really devastated my finances. One of the things we should learn when we look at entrepreneurs or people with portfolio careers is learn from their mistakes, see what they've done right and wrong. And when you make a mistake and something goes wrong, and especially if you're young and this is like, one of the first times it's happened, it's not the end of everything. It's just a chapter. It's not the whole book. You can overcome this. You'll build resilience so that you'll be able to respond to things better the next time something goes wrong. So really pay attention, be honest with yourself, pay attention, learn how you're growing. So that is the one, just, know that you're going to kind of have these challenges that you're going to overcome, and you'll build the resilience over time. The second one for me was I volunteered in a lot of positions and leadership positions, and it is my nature. It's a kind of thing that I want to do, but I would recommend it for people if they have the capacity. There are associations. So whatever your profession is or your industry, there's an association, professional body that you can be a part of. And if you can't find one that suits you, there are things like Rotary clubs and Lions clubs and Toastmasters and other organizations and service organizations and charities and NGOs and nonprofits. Volunteer at something, because that will help you to grow and find out more about yourself. You want to kind of find out as much about yourself as quickly as you can. So you don't want to have like 2 decades and look back and go, oh, I see what happened. If you can go and volunteer somewhere and you can do it in 2 years, that's much better. It's better insight.
Sure.
And if you have an opportunity for leadership, and if that's your style, then take those leadership opportunities, because you have no idea what you will learn from them, but they will be amazing. So for my career, I've been president of the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa. I was president of the Cape chapter within the association. I was president of the virtual chapter. I created the virtual chapter within that organization. I ran a conference, so I was convention convener 2 or 3 times. But in one of the big conferences, I met a woman called Lenora Billings-Harris, who was president of the Global Speakers Federation. And we met at a conference, and then she came to the conference that I was running, and she had an experience, a taste of the work that I do. And then she contacted me once she'd gone back to the United States. She contacted me and said, would I consider a position on the Global Speakers Federation board? And yes, I would consider that. So I went to the United States and I stood for this position, and I lost, and I didn't get the job. But a couple of months later, somebody else came off the board, and they invited me to go on in a different position. And I did, and I learned so much, and I built my network of people around the world. And then fast forward 7 years after that, I eventually became president of the Global Speakers Federation. And the experience that I've had in that position, yeah, there's some glamour to it, but mostly it's hard work, and lots of meetings and lots of diplomacy and so many emails and WhatsApp conversations. But you learn about connecting with people and understanding their perspectives around the world in different cultures with different values. And it has been the most impactful thing in my life. This last year of presidency, I handed over to the new president about 3 weeks ago. So and I earned no money. In fact, it cost me money to have that role. Certain things are paid for in their expenses, but it cost me money, it cost me opportunity. But who I am now, because I volunteered, because I took leadership roles, because I took a global perspective of things, who I am now is fundamentally different from what I was before. And that means that the value that I bring to any client is tenfold what it would have been 18 months ago. So that would be, yeah, my lessons from my life in terms of building that kind of portfolio career and establishing within yourself what it is you need to learn and grow.
Yeah. And so basically now, and any person that would actually book you, they are not you wouldn't be looking at the money, but they would have to look at the value that you would be bringing.
Yeah.
Going back to that. So thank you very much for actually sharing that. And now, is there any final advice you'd actually love to give to our listeners about pursuing a portfolio career?
Yeah. You know, the advice that I normally give to people about futures thinking is going to be the same advice here. With futures thinking, there's so much stuff that you can learn, and the models and the books and everything else. But it starts with curiosity. And why shouldn't our portfolio career start with curiosity? I wonder what it would look like if I designed a different job for myself. I wonder what it would look like if I did this kind of work in a different part of the world. I wonder what it would look like if I did this job, but I wasn't in the company, I was outside the company and just selling my services to them. I wonder what it would look like if a different kind of company wanted me to do the same kind of work. And that curiosity, just play that game, just, allow your imagination to have fun. It doesn't cost you anything for your imagination to go off on this little tangent. Allow that to happen, explore those ideas. And then maybe you don't leave your country and go and move somewhere else to do the same sort of thing. Maybe you just move into a different space, or maybe you learn something, or maybe you read a different book or listen to a podcast, and that opens up your opportunities. So nurture your curiosity about what your life could look like. And then you can start to design the life that really will fulfill you as a creative human being.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And then also at the very same time, now this is the last question. Where can our audience find more about you and also your work?
Oh, lovely. Thank you. If anybody's looking for futures content, then there's a website called futuresalchemist.com. My work and the program that I have, the coaching program around building a portfolio career, that is on my website, charlottekemp.co.za. And anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I love that. I love being able to see our respective portfolios on our LinkedIn profile. So I'm happy to connect there as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being part of this podcast interview. I really, really appreciate it. It was a very valuable interview. And I hope that the listeners will also take a lot from this and not only listen to this, but they will also implement everything that we've had conversation around. Thank you very much,
Great.
Charlotte. Thanks.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so